John Wall coming to the Clippers is the first big domino to fall in NBA free agency, which is kind of a messed up thing to say considering he keeps blowing out his Achilles. Kyrie Irving may have legions of Lakers bloggers fooled, but you didn't get me in that one, pal. And Russell Westbrook does the obvious. He took the money and ran, and then he turned the ball over. Good morning. I'm James. This is your daily dose of sports and snark for the greatest sports city in the world, Los Angeles. This is Faithful Angelenos. It is June 28, 2022. We are almost done packing for a move. When this clip is done, I'm going to pull apart this desk, and then the big shuffling of cardboard will begin. It's going to be crazy. But before we do that, let's talk LA sports. If you like the content we've been putting out, don't forget to clickety-clack the like button. Clickety-clack the subscribe button. There's a notifications bell. Hit that. It'll let you know when we have a new clip out. It usually comes out between 9 and 10 a.m. every day. Sharing is caring. Let people know we exist. And yes, comment. I'm not perfect. I get it. Before we start talking about the NBA and all the other good notes around LA, let's get to the scoreboard. Gavin Lux went 2 of 3, but Tyler Anderson took his first loss of the year after the Dodgers were shut out. A 3-hit shutout by Colorado, 4-0. In Colorado, no less. Still, LA has a 1.5 game lead in the NL West. Meanwhile, in WNBA, the Sparks are still seeking to tie their biggest winning streak of 2. Not now. It didn't happen last night. They fell to Vegas 79-73. Meanwhile, today, Clayton Kershaw, he's 5-1. He'll take the bump for the Dodgers against the Rockies' Kyle Freeman, who's 3-5. Former All-Star point guard John Wall. This is going to get a little convoluted. Yahoo Sports reported that he allegedly agreed to a contract buyout with Houston. Yahoo Sports. So then ESPN takes the ball a little further and says that he's going to become a free agent now and reportedly sign with the Clippers. Now, if you think that's convoluted and that doesn't make this a slam dunk, you ain't heard nothing yet. Look, Wall is 31. He didn't play last year because he had a falling out with the Rockets. They were trying to trade him. Matter of fact, he's only played in 72 games in the last 4 years. He was once known as a speedy point guard, but he's had heel and Achilles injuries. So the words damaged goods kind of apply in this little transaction mess, wouldn't you say? The plus side is that he's already a point guard, which NBA insiders said the Clippers need, and he's already friends with Paul George. So the learning curve isn't necessarily going to be as steep. Here's how the money situation supposedly works out. The buyout is allegedly for $6.5 million less than the $47.5 million that Houston already owes him. That way, if the Clippers do sign him for the mid-level exception, it allegedly pencils out, allegedly. As a result, the roster casualty is likely a backup center, Isaiah Hartenstein. But Hartenstein is going to be a free agent anyway. Also, it shouldn't impact the Clippers' desires to retain Nicholas Batum. Nicholas Batum has bird rights. I don't exactly know everything about bird rights. I just know that they can sign him for upwards of $10 million and everything will be cool. If this goes through, there are still questions remaining. One, is Wall still a starter? After spending an entire year not playing. Reggie Jackson was their starter last year. The Clippers wanted an upgrade, but missing the playoffs last season was not Jackson's fault. They liked what he did. So how much of an upgrade is it if they bring in Wall, who spent the entire year doing nothing in what Men's Health magazine calls the world's fattest city? You're going to say that guy still is quick? Really? Now, whatever the choice for guard is, that guard will join Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, Marcus Morris, and presumably Ivica Zubac, provided that Zubac signs a new contract. And if Wall does start, it's definitely a name. He'll be the biggest name point guard they've had since Chris Paul, no doubt. The Lakers were the only team to pursue Kyrie Irving in a sign-and-trade deal with Brooklyn, according to multiple reports. But again, the Lakers had very little the Nets would actually want. The Nets don't want Russell Westbrook. and the Lakers are not going to trade Anthony Davis. So as a result, Irving opts into his contract with Brooklyn. He's no longer eligible for a sign and trade, and then there was the predictable wailing and gnashing of teeth in the Lakers blogosphere. But again, it's the Lakers. So the internet scribes just can't give up this addiction, right? I mean, you know how people like to say the internet is undefeated? Yeah, they've clearly never read Lakers stories on the internet. There's nothing but L's across the board in the Lakers blogosphere. This morning, CBS Sports has a lengthy piece detailing how the Nets could still trade Kyrie Irving. I'm telling you guys, this is sports journalism's answer to when your neighbor can't stop blowing up your social media feed with pics of their ugly kids. Will you please show me something tethered to reality for a change? Could you swing that for me? Meanwhile, Russell Westbrook did what everyone expected, and he opted to continue taking money from an employer he doesn't like, which pretty much explains all of our lives, wouldn't you say? I would say what doesn't match up with our lives is he's going to get $47 million by taking the option. Now, Russell Westbrook's game is largely based on athleticism, but he's 34, so athleticism isn't exactly his strong suit now. However, Malik Monk is making overtures that he would return to the Lakers on a hometown discount. He likes playing here. How much of a discount? I don't know. Dodgers manager Dave Roberts doesn't anticipate Andrew Heaney's second stint on the injured list to be as long as the first one. That's good. The first one was 2 months. Now, if you're a longtime baseball fan, you may have heard of a group called Stats LLC. They were the ones who had compiled decades and decades of statistics that baseball fans used to crunch, you know, your batting average, your home runs, your RBIs, ERA. And then, of course, analytics nerds took over and started inventing all of their own stats that none of us could figure out, like splits and WAR and God knows what else. So Stats LLC might not be the Bible to baseball fans anymore, but it still might qualify as the Book of Mormon. Let's put it that way. Stats LLC said Tony Gonsolin made baseball history. He is the first pitcher in Major League history to enter July with a record of at least 9-0 and an ERA under 1.6. I don't know how much historic nature that is. It's just that they've been running those numbers since 1913, so that's over 100 years there. You tell me. There was an article online titled, "Looks like Craig Kimbrell isn't working out." It was a story published by Deadspin, though, so I didn't read it. I mean, why would anybody read Deadspin? I don't read it. Why would you? Look, if you don't know the history of Deadspin, it goes a little something like this. Before Trump was elected, we didn't know anything about sports and wrote about it anyway. Then Trump gets elected, and then they mix politics with sports to prove that they don't know squat about two topics. The end. That is the history of Deadspin. Having said that, there is a great question in the LA Times. Why is Max Muncy still batting cleanup? He's hitting 167. The average for a cleanup hitter in the National League is 247. Muncy is hitting 80 points less. Matter of fact, LA's cleanup hitters combined, all their averages together in the cleanup slot, combined for butt naked last in the National League. Having said that, for every time I see something really intelligent in the LA Times, I see something idiotic. It's 50-50. They're sort of like the Shaquille O'Neal free throw percentage of sports journalism to me. Here's the headline that I read in the LA Times. Gareth Bale signing with LAFC showcases how the U.S. is winning over European stars. Now, in this case, I didn't read the article because if the reporter was as dense as the copy editor who wrote that headline, I would have really been disappointed. You're telling me that LAFC has only discovered just now that there are soccer players over in Europe. You've never heard of David Beckham? You've never heard of Zlatan Ibrahimovic? They only played 8 miles away, bro. I mean, come on. I realize newspapers are having a tough go of it lately with expenses, but don't tell me you can't afford to pay for basic internet access. A Google search would have produced David Villa. It would have produced Wayne Rooney. Only now is MLS becoming attractive to European stars. Stop it. There's going to be a boxing match in LA on July 30th between 2 washed up NFL running backs. Now, normally, none of us really care when 2 retired athletes pick up the boxing gloves. Unless, of course, you're Nate Robinson and you get put to sleep by a social media influencer, right? But I have to admit, after all of those allegations against Adrian Peterson, it would be kind of funny to watch that guy go night-night. But it would be fun to watch him go night-night on a YouTube clip, not paying for the pay-per-view, not happening. So, I appreciate you guys watching. I'm about to break down the rest of my furniture, and we're going to be moving across town. I appreciate you guys, I do. If you enjoyed today's clip, do not forget to subscribe to Faithful Angelenos. We are trying to build something here for LA Sports. I'm James. Thank you very much for watching. We'll be back tomorrow. Faithful Angelenos is a Kian Corta El Queso production. Take care.